For Saudi Arabia, what's at stake is they really want deeper ties with the U.S. They want microchips, those NVIDIA chips that could power AI. Essentially, they want to turn themselves into a big AI hub long into the future. But they also just want to keep up that relationship with the U.S. And for President Donald Trump, he's put out this $1 trillion figure. He wants $1 trillion in deals. So, I mean, what you're seeing is this would be his first trip in the second term, first overseas trip. It was his first trip in his first term when he went to Saudi Arabia, so very much in keeping with him. But, the president really sees Saudi Arabia as fitting in the broader constellation of his desire for more business deals, more trade. And he sees the Middle East as a key route to do that. He also wants to get Saudi Arabia on side for his initiatives, both to get a new deal with Iran over its nuclear program and also on the Palestinians figuring out what to do in Gaza. So a lot of threads to pull, and a lot of them are woven right through Saudi Arabia.
Is this did Trump want to do this? And to some extent, I guess maybe Biden also maybe wanted closer ties with Saudi Arabia, but was sort of thwarted by Mohammed bin Salman and the Saudi government ordering the murder of the journalist Jamal Khashoggi. Has that been kind of swept under the rug or forgotten about at this point so that we can go ahead and build these relationships?
Yes, Jamal Khashoggi is very much, I mean, tragically to his family certainly, but that is in the distant past. For the Trump administration, you'll recall that Trump initially distanced himself, and his Secretary of State Mike Pompeo had some stern words for Saudi Arabia, but they were patching up that relationship. Then Joe Biden eventually came to realize that the U.S. needed Saudi Arabia too much. So there was that famous incident where Biden met Mohammed bin Salman and wouldn't shake his hand but gave him a fist bump. There was a moment at which Congress suspended a lot of sales of offensive weapons, so selling weapons to Saudi Arabia so that it could defend itself, but they were not going to sell them weapons for offensive strikes. That was eventually lifted, and President Trump has definitively moved away from that, so it is no longer part of the conversation at all. Instead, there's much more focus on business ties, on deepening those ties in technology. Saudi Arabia wants a nuclear program, a civil nuclear program. They want all sorts of unresolved questions around enrichment of uranium and how much they'd be allowed to do there. So, a lot of issues for them to talk about, but human rights will not be on the agenda.
Hey, I do wonder if on the agenda will be China, and is a strengthening relationship between the U.S. and Saudis a way of pushing back against China's move into the Middle Eastern region?
Yes, I mean that's the broader context. I don't think it's going to be absolutely at the top of President Trump's mind, but certainly there have been inroads by China in recent years into the region more broadly, and also into Saudi Arabia. They had floated the idea of conducting some oil transactions in yuan, for example, but what I think you see there more is Saudi Arabia, when it wants to get the attention of the United States or feels that it is not getting sufficient partnership or commitment that it wants from the president, then you start to see these stories about Saudi Arabia drifting closer to China. Mm-hmm. Certainly they're going to do what's in their own interests, but there is a push and pull there, but there's no question that the U.S. is more broadly the strategic partner of choice for Saudi Arabia. They very much want to keep it that way.
Yeah, it would seem to me that keeping the Saudis separated from China is almost more important than having access to their oil for us, right, Nick? Because we're swimming in oil now. The U.S., unlike 70 years ago, when this relationship started, we now realize that we've got enough oil to be self-sufficient if we wanted to be. So I guess it's the Saudis, what they could do for other countries, and also their massive amount of money that's most important to us.
Right. So that's why you're seeing that idea of the trade deals. I mean, this is something where President Trump early in his second terms, had conversations with Saudi Arabia, and they said, we're ready to do $400 billion in deals. And Trump said, I want to see you kick that up to $1 trillion. So, very much there are two issues going on here. One is Saudi Arabia has a ton of money to spend, and it's a question of where, and the U.S. would like that to be in these technological agreements around the idea of selling them microchips and things like that. But again, there are restrictions there that prevent those exports. So we'll have to see if there's any progress there. But it's also, seeing Saudi Arabia as a key and stable partner in a challenging region. They are a bulwark against Iran, though they have made some outreach to Iran in recent years. But going through Saudi Arabia and enhancing that partnership is also seen as a key way of boxing in Iran. So that's going to be part of the president's strategy as well.